Welcome, everybody, to episode 102 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. It's me, everyone's favorite goose, Jared Hornbeck, and I am here in Brooklyn, New York, as I always am, but I am not wandering around this castle mansion alone. No, who is here with me today?
Well, it is me, Steve Guntley, the man who is a little less Jennifer Lopez and a little more George Lopez. This is the podcast about tiny cyclopses, golden eggs, and spunk and funk. That's because this is the podcast about unlucky charms, the showdown between lingerie models and leprechauns that we all didn't know we wanted, but desperately need. We are joined by a very special guest to talk about this movie, heavy air quotes movie. Who is joining us here today?
Yeah, man. I mean, we throw the air quotes around sometimes, even though we try to be pretty charitable for this one. But, you know, we would be doing the world a disservice if we let the month of March finish out without having an episode of this nature, at least. I'm sorry it couldn't have landed closer to St. Patty's Day, but this is, we just had to do it. We had to get it in there. And I wanted to pull another person from one of my favorite publications to come on. So you, a couple of weeks ago, heard Lowell from Macabre Daily on here. Well, today we have Matt Orozco, who is the owner and copy editor of the wonderful Macabre Daily. So I'm sure you've seen their social media profiles and some of the updates, or you've read some of the articles and reviews on their website. If you haven't, you definitely should. Matt, thanks a lot for joining us here. Excited to have you.
Thank you both for having me. I'm so glad that we get a chance to talk about Charles Band because, boy, I have a history with this guy. So excited. And yeah, this is, I think we can use the word film for this movie. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's correct, but
it's technically a film.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a film. Yes. I'm curious, Matt, was this a choice of yours or was this a random spin of the wheel? We always offer our guests either like you can come in preloaded with one that you've talked about or you can take a chance. You can reach into the mystery box.
This was a mystery box one because my full moon knowledge kind of has like a cliff right around like the early 2000s. I think like many of us who are either at or around 40. Full moon was such a staple. But yeah, this was like the 2000s beyond until like the 2020s were pretty much a huge blind spot for me. So
that is not uncommon. Yeah, that was not uncommon for us either. You know, like there's a real dead zone, I think, between like 2000 and maybe 2015 when I think full moon kind of starts to rally a little bit. And I think they've been doing some actually pretty solid stuff for the last like couple of years. But yeah, this little middle chunk is a real hard sit in most of our experience so far. And I think Unlucky Charms definitely falls into that category for me. But let's learn a little bit about this movie. Unlucky Charms was released on July 22nd, 2013. It is directed by Charles Band. It's written by Band, Kent Rudebush, and Dominic Muir as August White. And it stars Tiffany Thornton, Seth Peterson, Charlie O'Connell, Nathan Phillips, Nikki Lee, Alex Rose Weasel, Misumi Max, Mike Diva, Peter Badalamenti, Ben Wolf, Karina Kemp, Anna Sophia Berglund, and Gerald Prescott Salas. Now,
Steve, you said all those names. It did not feel like there was that many people in this movie.
Right, I know. But like, if you think about it, there's 5 models. There's the 3 mean people who are running the competition. And then there's 4 tiny terrors. So, you know, it kind of balances out.
Sure.
Now, for all of his various tiny terrors, Charles Band had never made a leprechaun movie, which seems like it would be a natural fit. And it turns out there was apparently a reason for that. According to a quote in Dave J's book, it came from the video aisle, which we reference pretty much every single episode. The 1992 movie Leprechaun is a bit of a sore spot for Charles Band because he was upset that another low-budget B movie about a tiny monster wound up being this kind of breakout box office and home video success. Like, you know, Leprechaun came out in theaters in 1992. It was a very minor film at the time. Critics hated it. But then 2 years later, Friends launched, and all of a sudden everybody wanted to absorb everything that ever had a cast member from Friends. And of course, Jennifer Aniston was the lead of the movie Leprechaun. So it became a kind of back end like VHS hit, and it spawned this whole large series. And Charles Band was a little bitter about that because he felt like, you know, I think that was a Trimark movie, and I think they were just kind of like, you know, eating his lunch a little bit. And so it was a bit of a sore spot, and he kind of stayed away from leprechauns as a whole for a very long time. There's a Moonbeam film called Leapin' Leprechauns that is not really going for the same vibe. But weirdly, he decided to come around on it by 2013. And this Killer Leprechaun movie, very bizarrely, is also inspired by America's Next Top Model, which apparently was a show the band was into at the time. He wanted to do a reality show parody driven by social media that would allow him to integrate some of these tiny terror creatures into this universe. I will say this is not a peanut butter and chocolate kind of pairing necessarily. This is not two great tastes that taste great together. These are two very weird, very singular tastes that don't really seem to be in the same movie. But yeah, like I said, Charles Band literally let Twitter do his casting for him in a very weird way. They had some options, and when it came down to choosing, they went with who had the most Twitter followers. Now, Tiffany Thornton wound up booking the lead role because she had 1 million+ followers. At the time, she was known as the second lead of a Disney Channel show called Sunny with a Chance. I think if anybody remembers that show now, it's because it was where Demi Lovato came from. And this was all way, way past my time. So I'm not familiar with any of this, but I do know who Demi Lovato is.
It's about time we're delivering content for our younger listeners. Like somebody who's 25 is cheering and being like, Connie with a Chance or whatever the show is called. It's like, that's amazing. Like, I'm so glad they're referencing that. I don't know what that is. I mean, I know who Demi Lovato is, obviously, but like, it's just so funny because I feel like we constantly have to, I guess, disclaim our references by being like, we get it. Like, this is really antiquated.
Yeah.
This thing is like, forgive us. You have no idea what we're talking about type feeling.
And a lot of like big stars of now kind of came from this class. Like this is Zendaya, this is the Miley Cyrus. This is like a lot of like big stars now came from this sort of Disney machine. All right, so I'm gonna
feel bad for Tiffany because like the Disney track for her did not land her the same outcome it seems as Zendaya or Demi Lovato.
It really did not.
Feel for Tiffany that she ended up getting Unlucky Charms and not, Dune 2. So
exactly. I'm gonna. All right. I feel bad even bringing this up, but I think it is something that is worth mentioning for the production of this movie. Now, when they cast Tiffany Thornton, like I said, they went off of her Twitter followers and they didn't have a sit-down meeting with her. They called her up. They said, "You've got the part," and they didn't ask any further questions based off of that. It turns out that she had given birth 2 weeks before the movie began production. And I feel really terrible about bringing this up, but this is a movie about lingerie models where there are a lot of mean comments being told about women's bodies and a lot of like snarky little comments and everything like that. And she is a beautiful woman who looks like she just gave birth to a baby 2 weeks ago. And it creates a kind of tonal dissonance with the lines that they're saying to her, and it makes it feel extra mean. It makes it feel extra cruel, but it also feels like I'm feeling bad for her because I'm thinking, if I'm in this position, if I'm a new mom who just gave birth 2 weeks ago, do I really want to be putting on lingerie and walking around this B movie being terrorized by leprechauns? Like
getting roasted. Like it puts so much in context of the way that she's treated because they uniquely pick on her for that.
They do.
It's almost like, wait a minute, did you cast her because she was like, did they know that did they think she looked different? Did she know that she was just giving birth? I don't know. It puts a lot more in context knowing that now.
Right. I feel like they just kind of looked at her profile photo, which was an older photo, and she showed up and I am not judging her body at all. Right. I think she's a gorgeous woman and I think she's talented. And I just feel really bad that she's being put in this position where she has to stand here as this new mom and have actors walk around her and judge her body in lingerie. And I'm like, I just feel like that would be the last position in the world I would want to be in,
It's so on band though. Like it is, there's so many things, the pettiness of not liking Leprechaun, the inclusion of like women that are treated as kind of lesser than. It's very on band. That's all I know.
Yeah. And, the creature design is a bit of a problem here too, I have to say. Okay. Because our main bad guy, his name is Far Derrig, which is Gaelic for red man, I believe. This guy just looks like he's wearing a Party City leprechaun costume with strawberry jam rubbed on his face. Like the cover image of this movie, if you look at it, has been severely airbrushed and like photoshopped, and they kind of remove his eyes and make him look much more sinister. Nathan Phillips, who plays Farderg, just looks like a normal, good-looking man with some jelly on his face. Yeah. And I feel like I genuinely think he's giving a pretty good performance in this movie. I think he's
I would agree.
He's really trying to elevate the very little that he's being given to work with, and is like, he gets a producer credit on this, so it looks like he got a little bit of control over how he approached this role. But the costume design is not doing him any favors, and the other three little ghoulies that he's with has some of the worst mask work that we've seen on this show, if I can say. This is Troll 2 level of seeing the mouth moving behind the open mouth like mask.
They didn't even bother to put the dark paint around the eyes, right?
They didn't. Not at all. Like the Cyclops guy, you can very clearly see the seams of like the little helmet that he's wearing. I'm just like,
the CG, the CGI.
CG. Oh god, yeah, literally, not CGI to be clear. The CG eyeball. Yes, it is. It looks very bad.
Yeah, it's disappointing because it's Tom Devlin and his company doing it. So it does seem really kind of sloppy and hastily thrown together, which I hate to say because I feel like even in some of these weird late stage full moon movies that are obviously really cheap and really quickly made, we've sort of highlighted like, okay, like there's a lot you can look at here and scrutinize, but they did some cool practical gore effects, or there's some good makeup on this. But then like on this one, when I saw like who it was that did these makeup effects, I was just like, man, this leaves a lot to be desired. I hate saying that about it, but I don't know if it was an instance of the production shortening or what budgetary funds were available for the makeup and effects part of the movie shrinking or whatever it might is, because I have a hard time, like, even given the hectic schedule that it probably took to get this thing out so quickly. I have a hard time thinking that these would have been finished products that the team would have been satisfied with.
And Tom Devlin in the interview in the Dave J's book does say he was disappointed with the way it came out. Like he felt like this was a real opportunity, and he felt like this was not anybody's best work. We spoke just a couple weeks ago with Danny Draven, who's actually the editor on this movie, and he's just kind of got his thumb in a lot of pies over at Full Moon right now. And we commented to Danny that like his movies are always really, really constrained by budget. I think he came in the era when their budgets were the absolute rock bottom lowest and the production values were the rock bottom lowest. But we've enjoyed his movies because there's an energy and an enthusiasm behind making them that you just do not feel in this one. This feels like a one of the more hand wavy, like, let's just get this shit out kind of movies that they've done in a bit. And yeah, it doesn't really come together. This marks the end of yet another of one of the many eras. Full Moon is broken up into a lot of very specific eras. Some are longer than others. This marks the end of the Redbox era, when they were producing movies specifically for Redbox. They didn't yield very many films from this time. I think we talked about The Dead Want Women, which is one of the more lurid movies that we've covered. And we're going to talk about our Killer Eye Halloween Haunt, which is apparently a pretty rock bottom film. So, there were not a lot of movies that came out of this, but this would transition them into the Full Moon streaming era, which I think has been their longest and most successful era since the Paramount era. That's still very much going. Now, usually we like to single out some star power that they bring in behind the scenes here, and there's not a whole lot to latch onto here, aside from Tiffany Thornton, who is like a known commodity to not three guys in their 40s. But we do have Charlie O'Connell, who is best known for looking quite a bit like his brother Jerry O'Connell. Right. He took over for Jerry on the also ran syndicated sci-fi show Sliders back in the 90s. I don't know if anybody was a Sliders head, but I watched a couple episodes of that.
Man, Charlie O'Connell, to me, he looks like, he does kind of look like his brother, but he looks like a fairy granted Jerry O'Connell the wish of seeing Aaron Eckhart played in a biopic by John Cena.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really well put. That's really well put. I was just gonna
Thank
say
you.
it looks like Kids in the Hall head squisher like got to him and just kind of like stretched his face out a little bit, you know. But either way,
He's approaching
I
Varney also. At
there's a
times.
little Varney. There's I guess this is kind of a half-hearted compliment, but I feel like he looks like a Hollywood scumbag, which I think is what you want for this role.
Agreed.
He's playing a Hollywood scumbag, and he looks like one. Some of the other names here: Gerald Prescott Salas. I've seen her in a lot of different things. She was actually in the entire first season of The Walking Dead. She didn't survive to second season, but she was in the whole first season. She's been on shows like Parks and Rec. Like, she's still around. Very prolific character actress. And then we've also covered a couple of tragedies here. Masumi Max, who we've talked about. She was in Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl, which we covered at the beginning of this year. We sadly lost her in 2024 to a drug overdose. And we also lost actor Ben Wolf, who plays one of the Tiny Terrors. He's the non-Cyclops, non-Banshee. He's the third one, you know, the one that kind of doesn't really have a personality. But sadly, he died really... The
one
third
that like kind of elongates its face at one point.
Kinda, yeah. Pashka, I think is his name.
Yeah. They give them names in the credits, but like I couldn't tell you except for the Star Wars sounding, which is the Far Derek, right? Like at first I'm like,
yeah, that does sound very Star Warsy. Yeah, that's very true.
Then I remember I'm like, oh, there is a Far Derek movie already. It was an unwelcome Shudder movie. I'm like, it's a far better interpretation, I'd say, of that myth.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have no doubt.
Ben Wolf was Puka.
Puka, thank you, Puka. Yeah, he died very tragically in just a freak accident. He was crossing a street in LA and a car came by and he got hit in the head by the side view mirror and it killed him instantly. That was in 2015, so very sad. But yeah, let's talk about this movie. There's one other thing I want to shout out here. This movie had one of the single weirdest promotional tie-ins that Charles Band has ever done, and that is a full-on box of cereal, an Unlucky Charms branded cereal that is all marshmallows. They take out it's basically Lucky Charms. It's all marshmallows. It has shapes including red blob, orange blob, and green blob. I really could not tell based on the very grainy image off of eBay. But this was a full-on actual box of cereal that came with the DVD package, and it had a special prize. It had a little maze on the box and cartoon artwork that, again, makes Far Derek look far more mischievous and scary than he actually is in the movie.
Whatever we say about this movie, wherever we land on it, this is a brilliant marketing strategy for this to do that.
Yeah,
like
you could say a lot of things about Charles Band, but he knows
how to
this
is one of these things. Like we could, I mean, I don't think this is what's going to happen, but we could all, end this conversation at the end by saying that we think this is the single worst thing that we watched. And yet, if I went to a convention and saw a box of Unlucky Charms cereal with the DVD in it, I'm probably going to buy it.
Would you eat it though? Because I'm not sure if I trust the Band sourcing of marshmallows. Not to throw any shade, just more so. Would you eat it? And
I probably would, because I feel like whatever was used in those cereals to make those marshmallows, like those things are lasting forever.
Right.
It's possible. Yeah, I texted Jared the image of the cereal box. I'm like, if I wasn't certain that 12-year-old marshmallows would kill me, I probably would get it. Also, this is a $100 on eBay if you want it. So you can probably still track it down if you are so inclined.
It's a lot for some possible bacteria,
Yeah. I feel like it's definitely not something that ages
microplastics
particularly well. But yeah, there's something weird in there. There's whatever the EPA is banning in 2013 is probably just all in that box.
All the dyes that we know kill us now.
But that box of cereal represents so much more energy than went into any other part of this movie, in my opinion.
Well, you also failed to mention that we're 5 days into a new administration, and RFK is going to see that all of our cereal has all of these in it. So maybe the Unlucky Charms will be the only thing on the shelf in a couple of months.
Yeah, entirely possible. Entirely possible.
What a world.
Yeah. Well, so this movie, I think the biggest problem with this movie, and there are many big problems with this movie, but the biggest one for me was I did not understand what these monsters wanted or if they were even evil. And I think it kind of turns out that they weren't, but they also do some pretty fucked up shit. And like, so they're really kind of trying to play it both ways. But this movie opens in a very bizarre green screen sequence that's been color corrected all to hell to have those like purple hues everywhere. And it's like this playground, and Far Derek is talking to this little girl who then disappears, and we see all of the little leprechaun creatures living in what appears to be an Encarta 95 CD-ROM. There's just a bunch of like, it's just a bunch of like old monuments in a desert.
The beginning of this movie, that opening is wild. I could have sworn that I accidentally put on like a Neil Breen trailer.
Yeah. He's going to find out all the secret government secrets, like it is deeply, deeply strange. It's a weird way to open the movie. And then we learn that they're being summoned back to Earth, or maybe they're going back to Earth because they're curious. It's really not clear what they want to do. But this lands them.
Like, there's no, like, they don't establish rules. Like, there's no, it's all kind of fly by the seat of your pants. Like, this happens next, and then this happens. But they can go there and visit, but they have to be called back to do deeds.
Yeah.
Doesn't add up.
It's very, very strange. And like from the get-go, Far Derek is coming off like not like a Warwick Davis style, like leering villain, but he is like a weirdly sad man who is just like reminiscent and like longing for something, but like he's not playing it scary at all. He's playing it sad.
Reluctant killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like very like contemplative and mournful, and it's an interesting choice, because I actually from the opening scene of the movie, I actually thought that we were going to get like a Bizarro version of him. Like, I thought maybe it was going to end up being like he would be the benevolent one, but then there would be another leprechaun and some tiny terrors.
Yeah.
So
like
then
they turn on each other.
Yeah, like it was not what I was expecting.
Well, he kind of reminded me, and I'm not making this comparison because they're both little people, but he did remind me of Phil Fondacaro in The Creeps, which is again a far more serious and committed and good performance than the movie around him was requiring. And I think that, and again, Fondacaro brought a lot of like inherent sadness to that role, which I thought was really an interesting choice. So I definitely feel like these performances are in conversation with each other. But once we have established these magical creatures in their magical world and the fact that they are all very remorseful about something, we very hard pivot to a weird haunted castle in Hollywood where there is a reality show / modeling contract contest going on. And it
no
is
cameras. There's no semblance that anyone's recording this. So
yeah, they point around and say, oh, like, look, there's closed circuit cameras everywhere, but that's not how a TV show is made.
Right.
Even a reality show is going to have people everywhere. And I'm wondering, like, would this have been better if we just adopted a reality show format? If we actually made this look and act like a reality show with monsters kind of like coming into it? Because it doesn't feel like Band really understands the language of these shows.
I'll be clear. I didn't take a lot of notes on this one.
Yeah,
like I didn't write
really
very
took a
much.
lot.
I didn't write a lot down. I watched it. I actually watched it twice.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, well, I know where will join in certain parts of the conversation, and I know where maybe I'll lead the conversation if it's not brought up organically. But you just did. So I'll take this opportunity
Please.
now to go off on the one thing I wanted to discuss really about this movie in particular. To me, there is nothing less interesting than off-camera reality show stuff.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of the reality show is that you're supposed to be watching things happen in real time.
Yeah.
In reality. So to break the illusion of that and then have behind the scenes or something that's going on between takes of that, I don't want to see that, because the whole point of a reality show is you're supposed to be getting the unfiltered stuff in front of the camera. And to me, that's the biggest flaw of the way this movie is presented, because they only kind of glimpse at like, oh, there's a confessional camera. It's used like one time for like 1 minute just to have a scene when they're trying to figure out what happened to one of the girls. the whole thing. I mean, all of those hallmarks of reality TV, when you think back to those of like the character introductions, the confession cameras, the interview rooms where cameras are or characters are talking to the camera, like all of that stuff should have been the kind of framing or for the way that the narrative was told in this movie. Like it made me think of the 30 Rock episodes of Queen of Jordan.
Yes.
Because
which nails the look.
Exactly, because they changed the format of the show. So for those episodes, it isn't just that Tracy's wife has a reality show. 30 Rock is the reality show.
Right, right.
For those two Queen of Jordan episodes. And it recognizes that that's how it has to tell that story. So all of a sudden it's like Liz and Jenna and all these people are background characters, and DeFawn and all these other people are in the front because they're the characters of Queen of Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jack and Liz and them are treated the way background people would be treated on a reality show like this. And just the star wipes and the edits and the things, it gets perfect. Here, it's like, oh, there's this reality show that's going to be happening, but maybe it's already kind of happening. But everything then that you're seeing is when the cameras aren't rolling, and it doesn't really make sense. Like if you're going to lampoon reality show, like highlight the absurdities of what those shows are like. This movie seems really disinterested in doing that.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was the biggest mistake it could have made, because I feel like in a way it's kind of low-hanging fruit. It should have been easy to do.
Yeah.
Do you think that's more of a symptom though of like, these aren't really well thought out movies, right? Like this isn't like someone's like, I have to make Unlucky Charms because it speaks to me at night. This is like, hey, the full moon roster of ideas consists of like little people doing little people things, little dolls doing little doll things, or just some sort of monstrous thing chasing people, right? It's like the Roger Corman but just whittled down to 3 basic ideas.
Yeah.
And so he's just taking that here. But it's also like, as you both have said, like doesn't understand the language of those shows at the same time. It's like it's not trying very hard to either, because he's just kind of, this is the idea. And we're getting to this show, like this is the finalists, but we have no sense that like there was some progress before. It's just we're dropped into that.
Yeah, were people eliminated? We don't know.
It's their finalists, but it seems like it's their audition.
Yeah.
like nobody has a glass of throwing wine in their hand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you need a good throwing wine, and all of these women are playing into these very, very tired tropes. It's like the it's all cat fights and like, commenting about each other's wage and calling each other bitches. And like, it's very, very tired. But some of the dialogue here is utterly baffling. And I had to write down a monologue here because this is the single sweatiest joke I think I've encountered in the entire show that we've covered. I'm going to read this in its entirety. You know what, Darla? You remind me of a 4-letter word that is used to describe an annoying woman and an uber bitch. It ends in UNT. Can you guess the first letter? No, really. Can you guess? It's A. You need to meet my Aunt Connie. She's really annoying. She's an uber bitch, kind of like you, except I had a different first letter in mind for you. I mean, what the hell? That feels like when you're a kid and you're not allowed to swear, so you're like trying to say everything except for the swear word. I'm like, just say the swear word. I would be less offended at this point if you just said the swear word and didn't send me on this whole journey. There's a wink in here that makes it feel like somebody thought they were very clever for this construction, because it's like, I'm setting you up for a joke. Oh, there's a twist. I'm talking about my aunt.
You get whiplash waiting for that payoff.
Oh,
that joke is pushing boulders uphill. Like that thing is just like trying so hard to get across to and it's not the first time. In fact, I had to rewind it because I thought I heard the joke wrong. I thought it was like, what ends in UT? And I didn't hear the end part. And I'm like, wait a minute, this joke doesn't even make sense. Like there's more letters than that. What are we doing here? And it's not the only joke that I wrote down as far as just god awful. I'm sure we'll probably get there, but there's a joke about the economy in the toilet that it feels like it's born from the toilet. Like it is so bad and so ill conceived.
Oh God, yeah. One girl makes a joke about like, if you keep talking to me like this, you're gonna look like you just had a date with Chris Brown. I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
Like that is okay. I'll give them that it was topical in 2013. Like I'll give them that. But like, oof, yeah, really unpleasant. And they forecast a lot of different things. Obviously there's one girl who's just obsessed with becoming fat. Like that's the worst thing that she could imagine, is becoming fat and ugly. So guess what's going to happen to her? Yeah, magic is going to happen, and she's going to have a very bizarre looking special effect. It kind of just looks like in Photoshop when you're like dragging the corners to make her look bigger and smaller. Like that looks like that's what's happening to her.
Of course, it starts in the butt, right? Like her butt's the first thing to get big, because of course that's where we have to go with this.
Well, and again, like, how can you watch this and not think also about Leprechaun? Because immediately that scene starts happening, and I'm like, oh, okay. Was it Leprechaun 2? I think it's Leprechaun 2, maybe 3. The one with Carolyn Williams.
I don't remember.
When she when she blows up like that too. So it's like already derivative of another Leprechaun scene that's done better with a recognizable horror actress and better prosthetics and better makeup work and all of that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking about this before we were talking about the, kind of modus operandi of Full Moon with these kind of tiny terrors doing their tiny terror things. And, it's a subgenre of horror that wasn't what Steve and I necessarily gravitated toward when we were younger. But I always like to know from our guests, who are coming on and talking about Charles Band, people have differing levels of a relationship that started in different places. So I guess I want to know a little bit about like when you first discovered horror movies and like with Full Moon stuff in general. Like, were you someone who started renting those movies off the shelves when they were first available, or was it something you found later on, like us?
So I was an early Full Moon entry. And so my horror kind of origin, so to speak, is I think the first horror movie I remember watching was Halloween. But the only reason I remember watching it is because I remember the face. And I used to have to like do that game that you play when you're younger, where you like run through the house trying to hit every light on your way to your room so that you don't get yelled at for keeping the lights on all night. So like that movie kind of rocked me a little bit, and I think it opened the gateway. I was very fortunate that I had a grandmother who was very supportive of like not checking the content of the things I was renting. So she kind of let me loose on the horror section. And I was immediately gravitated to Full Moon movies because of the covers. Initially, Puppet Master was the one I most distinctly remember getting towards, because to me, like the idea of my toys trying to kill me, like I found it wildly entertaining. So all of the derivatives of like the Killer Doll movie, I've been a fan of. But Full Moon was always a staple of my horror diet, I think, when I was young, just because it was so catered towards where I was in my maturity. And like, you don't need to it's not like David Lynch, where like you need to maybe have some years of life behind you to really release yourself to something so strange. Whereas like these don't require much effort. And that era of like late 80s Empire, early 90s Full Moon was for me peak of their power, because not only were they putting out genuinely interesting movies, but they were often far darker than they looked. Like Arcade is one that sticks out with me quite a bit, because while it had some of the worst early computer graphics, it also is one of the darkest and most fucked up stories that they tell. And I was so rocked by Full Moon that when I moved to LA after graduating college, I wanted to work in the film industry, and I working 5 jobs in LA just to make rent. And one of them was a non-paying internship with Full Moon, which I was like, I'm finally going to get to the mothership. And this was in like 2008. So this was not when they were like, this was a lower point, I'd say, in their era, because they didn't have, if I remember correctly, didn't have a lot of rights to their movies. So how I was paid was they would pay for my parking in downtown LA, which was like $5. And by the way, this is like adjacent to Skid Row, was where their offices were. I don't know if they're still there. I think, in fact, I live in Cleveland now, and I think they just built a big like production facility out here. So I was paid for my parking, but they also had a wall of movies that were just theirs, and they were all bootlegs, and they were a lot of them from Mexico. And it's because I think they didn't have the rights from Universal for some of like the early, really successful ones like Puppet Master. So I was paid in like these movies that you couldn't get on DVD yet because they weren't readily available in the US. This is before everyone went region free. And so anyway, long story short, I didn't work it there very long because what I was doing is essentially making fake MySpace pages for all of their movies and then spam blasting people to like add them to their friends. I forget how MySpace even works, but like it was just like whenever you get those random requests from people you didn't know or things you didn't know, like that was me with a program just sending out. And then I'd make banner ads for their website to sell like the Thunderbolt action figure, you know, that they were trying to get out of there. Because the only thing they really had for inventory was, you know, some of those really expensive dolls, like the Puppet Master replicas they were selling for a while, and then all these bootlegs. And yeah, so I quit that after a while because like, maybe I don't want to do this with my life. But I kept those DVDs until I had to sell them because I saw them at Amoeba Records one time and they were going for $50 a piece. And I needed the money. So I'm like, I'm getting rid of these, selling them to Amoeba so they can go jack up the price on them. So yeah, I did meet Charles Band once. I don't think he'll ever remember me. But you know, he used to work, they had an office that was kind of sectioned into cubicles more or less, but we're kind of operating as different rooms, but there's no ceiling above them. So you could hear what he was talking about. All that good stuff. But I still have an affection for Full Moon. I think I don't know. It just represents to me, I think, what some of the most fun and silly horror can be. And I love the subspecies films and the Puppet Master films. I actually did a chronological order watch of all the Puppet Master movies when the pandemic started in 2020. And I think that represents the lowest point for me, which thankfully it's not a bad low point. But going through those in chronological order was tough because that means you get to the best ones at the end.
Oh, the best ones are at the end. Interesting.
Yeah, because all of the later like Puppet Masters are all like prequels of like this fantasy, not like this Wolfenstein Nazi Germany.
Oh, I see what you mean. You're going like story chronology.
Yeah, story chronology.
I see what you mean.
Which is messy as hell. Like there's more threads and through lines than the
It's way all
franchise.
over the place.
So
yeah, that would suck. I mean, at least you get like a Puppet Master 3 kind of in the middle-ish there. You know, that's
you do.
Yeah,
and that's
not bad.
Arguably their best one. I think even Bane admits that like that's the one they spent the most money on.
That's our favorite,
And you see it, right? You see it on screen.
You do.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point to make because, you know, we've said many times when we started to encounter movies from this era of Full Moon where it's sort of like, I hate using the word cynical, but it's just like, it's cheap, it's quick, no one really cares, let's just kind of get it out. And, you know, it's like, this is Full Moon and it's become synonymous of what Full Moon in a certain era, how they're perceived. And it's like, I think about that and I don't want to dwell on it because I don't think that's fair to the movie. Like the movie is a product of when it was made and how the company was operating at the time. But this time around, more so than other times, I felt myself feeling like, isn't it sad that we had Subspecies and Netherworld and Puppet Master 3 and then 20 years later, the same company, like, this is the stuff that they're putting out. Like no aspirations to appear cinematic in any way. I know it's hard when you're shooting digitally for no money and you have no time or pristine, gorgeous location to shoot in, like spending time to shoot Subspecies 2 and 3 back to back in Romania and just letting Ted Nicolau work with a bunch of actors who are really game to play those characters and an amazing Romanian backdrop. Like, yes, obviously you can't compare Unlucky Charms to that, but I felt myself being sort of sad that like, I was like, man, I just think to those early Paramount era Full Moon stuff. And it's like, no matter how limited by the financial means or scheduling or time constraints they were, there was this cinematic sort of lofty aspiration that they had, and you would be like, man, they really couldn't do it, but they tried. And then you look at something like this and it's like, oh, this is what they're trying to do, because they're just tempering expectations of the product that they're going to put out so much that it's like, this is essentially kind of, it seems like what they have in mind, and they're okay with that here. And it's like, we want to meet the movies where they are.
Yeah.
I don't want to compare one to the other because it's unfair to do. But this time, more than any other time watching one of these really cheap kind of later stage ones, I felt myself just thinking like, even as problematic as Meridian is, it's so beautiful to look at. And it's like compared to this, where one just seems like an A movie shot on film that happened to be released on video. This is something where it's like, unless you have your own streaming service, you're not putting something that's releasable out there.
No, and it really, yeah, there's such a low level of effort across the board. Like if you look at the cinematography in this, like these actors are being done no favors. Like they're being shot in this really low light with overhead, like they all have bags under their eyes and blemishes. It's just like the cinematographer is just not their friend in this one, and everything's just kind of like low lit and kind of low energy. And yeah, like I said, we're like 40 minutes into the movie and we still don't really know who these leprechauns are or what they want. And would they finally tie it in with the Gerald Prescott character, who is the fashion designer, who also has some kind of like Dorian Gray magic thing going on. And we know that because they shout it out as Dorian Gray magic. They say that explicitly in case we don't get the reference. But so she's somehow controlling the leprechauns and making them try to harvest souls, I think. But like, they don't succeed, right? This is a very, very low body count, right? It's only like 2 people, I think, die in this entire movie. And they do this kind of like hero turn for Farderrig and his gang at the end of the movie. But the little Cyclops guy has already sexually assaulted a woman. All right. Very Revenge of the Nerds style, but still he sexually assaulted a woman. You don't get to come back and make him like the hero at the 0 hour here because you just ran out of ideas. And they even give Farderrig like a death scene that they want to be touching, that they want to feel like a sacrifice or like a martyrdom moment. So I'm just like, all right, so you guys just have no idea what you want these characters to be.
And there's this aspect of it too, which we kind of brought up before. You know, there's the moment when the one character is in the confessional camera room and they're watching that back because it's footage that they've been recording. All of these other like interactions that are happening with these women in the house, are these on camera? Like, are we supposed to think that this is happening intended for the audience? Or again, are we watching what happens between when the cameras are rolling? Because then they're talking about, why don't we just pull up the camera? Is this whole thing the reality show? It's just so underthought, where it's like, why even present this like America's Next Top Model type show that you want to parody if you have no real interest in parodying sort of the insincere way that a lot of these shows are made?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be what you want to say?
Like, you ever seen the movie Curtains, where he like invites all those women to like basically act, right? Like, that's what you could have done here to remove the whole reality show thing. It's like, we're inviting these women to basically audition for a private, right? Because there's no sense that this is actually important. Like, they don't even tout up, like, they say she's a major fashion designer, but we're taking that at face value, right? We're not giving anything to help us understand. And I'm not trying to ask too much from a movie like this. Like, I think that as you all said, you meet the movie where it is. But yeah, it's also not trying. It's a first draft script that they're just shooting right through because they're not taking any points to think about, does this make sense? What's the lore here? Like, I don't think that there's a big backstory. I think they just looked up Farderrig and we're like, all right, this works. It's not Leprechaun, so we can do this. But we need to throw in another like couple Nilbog citizens just to really round out the cast.
Yeah. It's very much like that. Yeah, because he always needs like a little gang of them, right? It's never just like one guy. He needs a little gang outside of like Ginger Dead Man, you know. But even Ginger Dead Man adds,
or Evil Bong.
Evil Bong, I think they all expand like their universes after a certain point, you know. So he likes to kind of have a little crew running around, but none of these guys really pop. You know, there's like a Banshee and then there's a Cyclops.
Didn't it? Need some Baby Oopsie, didn't it?
Baby,
Steve, say it.
I know.
Steve, say it. Say this movie needed Baby Oopsie. Say it.
I will not admit that. In fact, that's the only thing I can think of that would make this less pleasant.
I do listen, so I'm like, I am up with the lore of how Baby Oopsie has transpired, and I know that there's a series coming.
Just wait.
You're in for some.
By the time our listeners are hearing this, the Baby Oopsie triple feature episode will have been weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in for a good time, Matt. It's on its way.
Yeah,
I'm gonna block the whole weekend. turn down the lights, get a bottle of wine, put the
I
candles
love
on.
it.
Smoking jacket and pipe.
Exactly.
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah. I just feel like the story beats that they were cramming in here at the end were not earned. I mean, this movie is blessedly an hour and just kind of like an hour flat with like 10 minutes of credits, which I can appreciate because it didn't have much to sustain it beyond that. But
Most respectful thing about Full Moon is that actually that like the modern Full Moon films know exactly that these do not need to go past an hour. They're almost like anthology stories at this point. So
a lot of the recent ones, including some that we really liked, like Trophy Heads, started life as web series and then were just kind of re-edited into little short films that are usually like an hour or an hour and a half, often much shorter than the average Full Moon movie. Baby Oopsie, that trilogy was a perfect example of that because that was a 7-episode TV show.
This could have benefited, honestly, from that kind of treatment. If they would have, because the concept isn't bad. If they would have stuck to it and really wanted to even do it like a serialized format, the way a reality show would have been released, and did it over 4 or 5 25-minute episodes or something like that, and had it then lean more into the reality TV aspect, and maybe also then devote some of the time in a couple of the episodes to explaining a little bit more about what makes each one of these characters special or unique, or why they're really summoned, and you can spend a little more time with these characters. I have to be honest, the blondes in this movie, I could not tell apart.
They blended together. They absolutely did blend together, and I feel bad saying that. Like, I don't want to think of anybody as like disposable or generic, but they're not being given a lot to work with here. And again, there's just a lot of missed opportunities. Like we said, the confession cam, they kind of set that up to be a mechanic, but they just did not understand the visual language of those confessionals that they do on reality shows. Like, he's shooting it from this high angle and it's like poorly lit. Like, you need straight down the barrel. You need it very like well lit with like a ring light, even something like that would have given it some more verisimilitude. And the actress that's reciting the lines is not naturalistic in the least, so like, we're missing opportunities kind of left and right here. I don't know that there is a good version of this script. I don't know if there is a great lingerie models versus leprechauns movie out there, but this one certainly ain't it.
The door's wide open, it sounds like.
Yeah. No, please, everybody, prove me wrong. Robert Eggers, I know you're working on a couple of projects at the moment, but you could make a little time in between your. What is he doing? He's doing a Labyrinth sequel now. That's pretty cool.
And a werewolf movie.
I
feel like it's going to be anything but a werewolf movie. Yeah, a werewolf.
I get every time I see that title, I just keep thinking of the Mystery Science Theater. The werewolf.
You have werewolf. Fascinating.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing that all year. Well, do we have any final thoughts on Unlucky Charms? Do you feel unlucky for having drawn this one from the mystery box?
Well, so it's funny because Matt did this was sort of a spin of the wheel, but I would be lying if I said I didn't kind of push him into it a little bit.
Yeah.
I brought it up as a suggestion. I said, this is going to be a March episode. We've got one more left. Why don't we've got Unlucky Charms on here possibly. What do you think about it? He gave it a look and said, I'll give that one a try. Cause sometimes movies that aren't particularly good can make for better episodes occasionally, depending on how you approach doing the episode. I think for this though, final thoughts for me on this one, it just didn't work. Like as much as I hate being negative about these things, that we've done a good job of trying to mine the things to compliment from these, and it's like Danny Draven, now friend of the show, edited it. It's always nice to see the names of people who we've had these conversations with on these movies. But again, I have no illusions that everybody who worked on this didn't know exactly what kind of movie they were making and what the end product of this thing was going to be once it was finished. So I don't really feel so bad saying it. Like, it just, nothing really about it landed for me. I mean, it's, I'm sure, if I think about it, there are worse ways to spend 70 minutes.
Yeah.
But like, I just felt like they introduce a concept that they don't seem interested in delivering.
Yeah.
and which is unfortunate. I mean, I get like to this point in time, reality shows parodies are sort of a trope that has been overdone, but like at 2013 they weren't really, so I maybe would have been able to look at it and say, oh, that's pretty innovative for 12 years ago for them to do this, where people weren't really pointing that out yet. But I guess maybe didn't even really know what it was about reality shows that made them so easy to make fun of or so silly.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like a narrative device, and it's incredibly underbaked and confusing. And I just didn't get a whole lot out of this one. I didn't actively like hate anything about it per se, but it's just so kind of instantly forgettable.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
Yeah.
put that on the cereal box.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just instantly forgettable, I think, is kind of the best way to approach it. It's this is the era of full moon that we struggle the most with, I think. And I think Charles Band agrees with that. He's written in his book, this was a very, very hard time for him financially and personally. And like, he was just going through a lot of hard stuff. And, you can understand after he's been doing these movies for 30 years at this point that, like, yeah, the energy is starting to flag. He will find another wind. He will, I think he does seem like, at least in his promotion and his kind of overall creative direction of the modern full moon, he seems much more energized. He seems like they're kind of rebuilding a fan base with like a lot of new and interesting ideas. But this is definitely from a low era of the show, and this is kind of representative of why things needed to change. So
I don't regret picking this because I happen to have a penchant for just bad movies.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a Trauma fan, die hard. And I grew up on those movies as well. So I think it's kind of I'm able to try and find the good, but I think I agree with everything you've all said up to this point about it, and don't have much to add, save for just that it is a big missed opportunity, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not something I'll go back to, but you know what? If they wanted to redo this one and try and tighten it up, I'd watch that. I'd give it another shot if they were willing to give it an honest try. But at the same time, I don't think this is a franchise material. So give us Shrunken Heads 2 over any more of the Unlucky Charms, I'd say.
Without
Absolutely.
a doubt.
I mean, we say, and that comes up for us a lot. We say, like, this is not the worst movie I've ever seen, but we do need to preface that our bar is probably a lot lower than the average person's bar. The average person on the street, far and away, this is the worst movie they've ever seen.
It would be painful, I think, for someone to sit through this. Like, if I would ask my wife to watch this, she'd probably be filing divorce papers just because she's like, this is not worth it. Whatsoever.
Yeah. I think I don't even know if this would crack my bottom 100, honestly, but it's still quite bad, and I really didn't care for it. But I did.
Hands of fate,
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Or
but
at least
I did
a movie that's sincere. Like,
right.
I think people will watch like Asylum movies, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's the worst thing I've ever seen," but that's by design.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I did have a great time talking about this movie. So much for joining us. And where can people find all of your amazing stuff?
So macabredaily.com is our website. We publish all of our reviews, news, opinions, things like that. We also have a YouTube channel. It's at Macabre Daily YT on YouTube. And then Instagram is just at Macabre Daily. If you want to stalk me, it's just at Macabre_Maddie. My public profile, so do what you will. But please check us out. And thank you both for having me. I really enjoy your all's podcast. I try and listen to a lot. I try and listen to as many as I can. But this one provides a good, it gives, not all films, horror films particularly, especially full moon and trauma films, get this kind of attention, and not so much like it's usually making fun of them, like lampooning them in some way, as opposed to like looking at them as like, someone made this movie, let's look at it from a critical perspective, even if you don't like it. So I appreciate what you all are doing for giving these movies the benefit of the doubt. And I hope people watch them, because even if they're not the best thing you've ever seen, oftentimes you're not going to see anything else like it.
True.
Yeah,
it's very true. It's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
It's really nice to hear you say that, Matt, because we like to think that, we have fans of the show because we present the information that way. Occasionally, when we're about to cover a lesser known movie on the show, I'll kind of like look around and see, okay, has this been covered on other shows? Like, are there other people who are doing an hour on this movie? And what I've generally found for a lot of them, they are bad movie comedy podcasts.
Yeah.
And so I'll pop one on and see like, okay, well, what is it that they're going to kind of highlight about this? And I find a lot of them to be insufferable. I find it to be like just two or three people that think they're really, really funny. It's like some kind of like hacky jokes and then pregnant pauses. And then it's like it all just kind of they'll speculate on like why an actor did this or why this person did this and or why like and it's always things that like really could have been debunked with 5 minutes of Googling or reading a Wikipedia article. And it's just like that level of unpreparedness I recognize is kind of what you need in a comedy podcast. Sometimes it's like if you actually do learn about the movie, maybe you don't want to make fun of it as much.
Yeah.
But I get really frustrated that when I listen to things like that, it's very rare that they land for me. A couple do, but for the most part, I'll listen to these single one-off episodes. I'm not naming any particular shows, but I've just been very underwhelmed by the way that they approach the material. And I think people who enjoy Full Moon stuff, even though they know that we haven't been fans since day one, that we've been where we champion a lot of the stuff and the things that we maybe were a little more hard on early in the show, we're a little bit more forgiving about now. And then when we come to something like Unlucky Charms that we really just don't like, it's not really for us, we can have this conversation in a way where we still kind of treat the property respectfully and dissect it that way. So it's
you meet the movie where it is. Like, you meet it where like, it's not, we're not the Academy here trying to discern, and even if we were, like, it's a different context under which you're viewing the movie. And I think that people that want to rip these movies apart often take it from the perspective of, well, this is what I believe is objective quality. And they don't appreciate the process of making a film and how they're often just kind of really organized chaos that end up in occasional miracles. So, I think these do deserve the attention you're giving them. And I mean, the ones that, I wouldn't gravitate towards, I still listen to the episodes on because it's kind of like the Cliff Notes way of saving yourself the hour. So you all are doing doing someone's Lord's work. I'm not sure. Maybe it's, the God that runs Baby Oopsies, autonomous acting, but
man, have I been waiting for a chance to do this segue. If you enjoy the Lord's work that we do, then jump onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a little 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. I want to say, please review the show. It's been a while since we've had a review on the show, and it helps us to reach a wider audience the more reviews there are. So please do that. If you want to keep up with what we're doing on the show, the best way to do that is through our social media, which is primarily Instagram. Right now, you can follow the show at puppetmasters_Castle Freaks, or you can follow me at _Giallo_Jared, or Steve at Minotaur Matador. We have the show up on our YouTube channel with just audio versions of it right now. I do also promote the show on Blue Sky and Threads. And we're out there. And if you just search the name of the podcast, you can find us and see what episodes are coming up. But, it's a lot. And it's not the only show that Steve has to worry about recording and editing and all that kind of stuff. So, Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I also have another show called Cinema Arcade. That is cinema and arcade mashed together, because that is what we do. We are talking about movies and then playing the video games based on those movies. At the moment, we are wrapping up a little mini series on Mad Max, which has been a lot of fun. We just did the first one and Fury Road, and I've been enjoying revisiting those and playing both of those games. A lot of fun.
Cool.
And you mentioned Manos, the Hands of Fate earlier. That's coming up very shortly. There is a game. We are going to be playing it. It's mostly based on the MST3K episode. So I think we're going to just watch that episode as a way of cushioning the blow of that movie a little bit. I have a hard time imagining raw dogging Manos, the Hands of Fate without having that little MST3K buffer in there.
It's a young person's game at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've tried. It's tough.
It's a tough one. But we have that and nearly 100 other episodes out there that you can find. And be sure to check us out next week because we are covering a brand new movie just from 2024. This is Charles Band's directorial effort from 2013. Let's find out how he's directing in 2024 with a movie called Death Streamer, part of the new Pulp Noir sub-label that they've been promoting over there at Full Moon. We're excited to finally check out one of those. And I think we're going to be guestless on that one, actually. I think we're just the two of us, right?
Yeah, so listeners, we are entering right now just a little bit of a soft reset. We got to just over 100 episodes, and we thought, some of the feedback we got early on from the show was that we got into having, as amazing as the guests are, we got into having guests very quickly on the show. And so there were, people had pointed out that they sometimes like to spend time with the podcast hosts, and they wanted to get just a little bit more of just me and Steve. So we're going to be doing a few weeks of guestless episodes, just kind of a soft little reset before we really probably schedule ahead the next 100.
Oh, yeah. Most likely. But I'm looking forward to that. I know pretty much nothing about this movie or about the Pulp Noir series, so I'm excited to get into all of that. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time.
There's one last thing that I want to say that I just thought of when I was telling you where you can follow the show. I forgot to mention that you can email us at puppetmasterscastlepfreaks@gmail.com. It's always really nice to get emails from fans. We had even like people involved in some of the movies or, involved in some of the things we've been using as sources for the show, email us. And that's always really exciting. We like to read some of them on the shows as well. And the last thing that I want to say also, sorry, Steve, you have to edit this. Fuck.
Yeah.
I just lost it. There was one more thing. Oh, sorry. Puppetmasters@gmail.com. And there was one. Oh, okay. And one other thing, there is a feature on Spotify that allows you to comment under the episode description of podcasts. So if you're one of the people who listens to the podcast on Spotify, feel free to leave comments under the description of the episode. If we bring up something that's factually incorrect, or if we ask a question that we're not sure about and you don't want to take the time to send us a full-fledged email, or you just want to say hi and let us know that you're listening, I think commenting on Spotify is also kind of a fun way for us to engage with fans of the show. So I just realized, I always I open Spotify and I see it on other shows, and I always forget to tell people that that's a way that they can reach us as well. So definitely do that if you feel so inclined to do so. Thank you again to Matt Orozco. Check out Macabre Daily and all of their amazing articles, reviews, and writing. And we will see you guys next time for Death Streamer.